It's really hard to see men who have a lot of power taking advantage of you, and for some reason you feel ashamed to speak out about it, and you feel like you did something wrong.
Ali Cook is speaking about it because she wants justice over what police have now confirmed was an indecent assault on her and a co-worker at Saigon restaurant by two members of a Vietnamese delegation here on official business in March.
An absolute delight to be able to welcome Prime Minister Ching and all of the entire Vietnamese delegation here to New Zealand.
But a week earlier, during a recce of Saigon by Ching's advance party,
my coworker told me that it was like the Prime Minister's security team. And my boss told me that if anyone offers me a drink, I have to accept it because it's impolite to reject a drink from someone in Vietnamese culture.
The owner of the restaurant denies any of these incidents took place. He accuses the women of lying. But Ali is confident in her recollection of men in the party of 8 giving them cash and calling them magazine girls, asking them to sing. But then, she says, it took a frightening turn.
They started like pulling our hair back like that and pouring liquor down our throats, whiskey down our throat. And so we were getting very intoxicated very quickly. And they would try and like pull us on to sit on their laps or like push us against the wall, and they would kiss us.
Given the intoxication, things became hazy, but she remembers one man grabbing her breasts, another her bottom, and waking up the next morning with the worst hangover she's ever experienced.
Couldn't like form a coherent sentence. I was still so just out of it. Every time I stood up, it felt like I was going to fall flat on my face again. And that's when I started thinking, like, I don't think I was just drunk last night, because this doesn't feel like I was just drunk.
Your drinks might have been spiked.
Exactly.
As well as the volume of alcohol itself.
Exactly.
And then there was this.
There was like a cut on my nipple, like kind of, it was like from the center going out, and it was a little bit deep. And I don't remember that ever happening. My coworker, who was also there that night, and she told me on her own, before I even mentioned it, that she also had that same cut.
Can you figure out what on earth could have caused that?
I have no idea.
The next day, Ali and her co-worker both made police complaints.
I was told that there wasn't really much they could do about it since they were Vietnamese nationals.
So we asked police about their investigation. They would not be interviewed, but in an unusually strongly worded statement said police have no doubt these two women were indecently assaulted by two men while working, and had these men still been in New Zealand, we would have pursued criminal charges, which just 48 hours ago came as news to Ali Cook.
I wish they would have told me first.
The police investigation included reviewing CCTV footage, which they would not release to us, and speaking with witnesses. They confirmed the suspects were Vietnamese officials visiting on official business, but by the time they'd established their identities, the men had already left New Zealand. As we have no extradition treaty with Vietnam, we were unable to commence extradition proceedings, police said in their statement, and as such, no charges were laid. Instead, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, they wrote to the Vietnamese ambassador, outlining what had taken place and expressing police's deep concern over the behaviour. And that was that.
I feel like there probably is something they can do.
Which is where the parallels with the case of Malaysian diplomat Mohammed Rizalman become interesting. In 2014, Rizalman was controversially allowed by New Zealand authorities to return home, even though he'd already been charged over the indecent assault of Tanya Billingsley.
I'm someone who has something to say about this assault. You know, it happened to me.
After she waived her right to name suppression to go public, Rizalman was eventually extradited. He pleaded guilty to indecent assault and served 9 months home detention before being sent back to Malaysia. So could and should the same happen in this case? Under the Extradition Act, New Zealand can ask for the return of a suspect if the crime carries a sentence of at least 12 months imprisonment. So indecent assault does qualify. The next step is for police and foreign affairs lawyers to assess what Vietnamese law allows for. So there are avenues. The fact that the suspects had already left the country did not need to be the end of it. Ali Cook wants the men from the Vietnamese delegation held accountable for what they did to her.
That it's not fair that they get to go back to their home country and go about their lives while their victims are stuck having to process what they've gone through and never see justice. It's not fair.
Now it's up to officials and their political masters to decide whether they'll seek to have justice done.